Afternoon, everyone's Mervyn here.
I'm Len from Deep. I'm the project lead. Mervyn is the CEO of Confidio and Deep, and he will continue.
Yeah. So I think what we'll do today is go through the 5 points. Really, just an introduction, then the problems of what we think will happen with the utility billing systems, which we've done some research on in Confidio, why we developed the Deep retail billing solution, and then looking at the concept of a decentralized utility retailer, and then a little bit more about the Deep ecosystem. Natalia, how is this working? Questions come afterwards, or do you want people to be able to interrupt in between?
Well,
I don't mind either way.
Whatever you prefer. I mean, we have the group chat that everyone can see. So if the questions arise during the presentation, we can also make some stops and answer them. But also we can do it at the end, whichever way you prefer.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. So the overview of the EWF working groups, I think the purpose is really to support each other in projects and facilitate some sort of knowledge sharing and interaction amongst the affiliates. So, and I think most of you already know that. With the utility billing solution, I think from Confidio we were asked to lead the working group. And so that's what we've started doing. I think we haven't really sort of got into it in a major way. But I think that at least from some of the calls that we've gotten, a lot of people have been contacting us fairly regularly. So in that way, I suppose the news has got out. Maybe I'll just go straight into what is Deep for us. The aim was which is probably similar to what all of you are up to, is that how do we enable energy companies to be part of a decentralized, decarbonized, and digitalized energy future? It's a software stack that we think will empower both centralized and decentralized energy companies to easily host, as well as to deploy a set of blockchain-based applications. Why do we say blockchain-based? I think it's because we know blockchain is one of the core technologies, but there are a number of other digital technologies that we add to the blockchain to make sure we get a business model. I think blockchain on its own is, at least our opinion, is unlikely to be able to give you a business model. And the other aim that we had with Deep is how do we allow executives, senior executives, or even people leading startups to manage this without having to deal with the underlying technical complexity, because what we've also noticed is a lot of people in the startups themselves don't really have a technical background. They mainly have marketing, communications, or strategy as a background. This very, very similar to the energy companies themselves. The architecture that we've had is we've tried to keep to a very an architecture that helps communicate. So probably the most strategic part of the architecture is the UI layer. The API layer is important. The smart contract layer is also, it's the heart of the system, but it's generally, for us at the moment, to be at 20-25% of the actual effort. So although the smart contract is critically important, it's really a minor part of the effort. Then we have the blockchain layer, the IoT layer, of course, in any physical use case is important. And then what we've got is an AI layer. We have our own data science software stack, and in there we have our data scientist and AI person who is currently testing some of the deep learning algorithms in that area. We're also using the AI layer to overlay a virtual assistant into the stack. Yeah. That's quite important for some of the energy companies that we're working with. The problems of the legacy retail billing systems, I think all of you know billing systems will realize that there's a clear lack of functionality. Most of the energy billing systems at the moment have been designed in an environment of regulated, protected utility business, which was protected by the states in the EU. And now, as we're moving into a more decentralized production, decentralized retailing, the billing systems can't really keep up. The legacy systems also, they're inefficient, they're costly, they're complex, and what we discovered is that they're also particularly error prone. Yeah. And a big part of the retailer at the moment is that they constitute about up to 15% of the total operating expenses of a retailer. There's a lack of transparency for customers, but there's also a serious lack of transparency for people operating the system. Yeah, that's what we discovered as well. There's a lack of security. There is no advanced cryptography. The PODs don't have any extra security on them. So they're only secure because they sit on the premises at a site. All secure customer data are kept in centralized databases. And actually, in many times, they're actually kept on Excel sheets in the customer departments of these utilities. There's a lack of standardization, and so billing systems vary across geographies, across countries, and that makes market expansion difficult. It also makes it difficult for startups in the area because they are clearly at a disadvantage to any of the larger players. So what we did with Deep was we tackled these problems, and so we're working on very specific solutions. I think, like everyone in the energy space, we started out thinking about how we're going to save the world and change the world. And I think we still, on track for that. Our core values have not changed, but what we've thought about is, what do we tackle first that has a significant business model? Yeah, so we actually can demonstrate that we can actually solve problems with the blockchain solution, and it's not just POCs and a whole lot of experimentation. So we basically looked at the flexibility of switching tariffs, dynamic tariffs, demand side management, and we also looked at how we have some specific production and consumption optimization. The meter to cash cycle at the moment is fairly expensive, so we figured out how do we make this short and inexpensive. Full transparency for both the grid operator, full transparency for the grid operator, for the retailer, and for the customer. So not just for one of the parties, which at the moment most solutions try and help one party in particular. Blockchain grade data security and trust, I think all of you know that already, and the standardization and ease of implementation, that was quite important for us. So we've developed a whole lot of tools around the stack to make implementation easy. We've been lucky because our main product one of our key ventures was for a Fortune 50 company, and so we had to deal with the whole range of implementation issues. So we had the advantage of being able to copy and paste that into our retail app. So in a nutshell, the Deep Retail decentralized app is a fully automated billing process. It significantly shortens the meter to cash cycle. We've demonstrated that. And it enables the retailer to offer dynamic prices, customer tariff switching, and automated value settlement. Automated value settlement is at the moment under development. That is not currently functional. All the others are functional. And what is the business case for that? It's quite clear. If you look at traditional billing software, if you really are super efficient, like one of the larger retailers, like maybe TEPCO, we're not really sure what Uniper has, you range from €3, but when you move up to the smaller energy retailers, you can go up to 10 euros. And there must be outliers there that are currently producing bills at around 15 euros per invoice. We have tested and costed our solution. At the moment, we've based it on 100,000 prosumers, and we are between €1.50 and €1.80 to actually produce an invoice. Yeah. Everyone talks about the scalability problems on the blockchain. That is definitely true. We also have those problems, and our current implementation can only handle about 250,000 prosumers. Yeah. So that's something that we're working on. Fortunately, with our existing client, we don't come near that number, so we know that remains stable. So we've deployed it already at a large European energy retailer. Do we know the? You know, you guys already know where it is. It's live at Enevos. We went live a few months ago, and we are now going into production. That's just been approved. So the components I spoke about. So it's a smart contract-based billing system, and we currently have, and I've lost count of that, 11, 18. How many smart contracts do we have?
15, around
15. Yes, so we structured the smart contracts based on the business logic and what we needed. So at the moment, it's 15 smart contracts. We have a dashboard for the prosumers, and we have a dashboard for the management. And one of the solutions that we developed was a database and caching solution. And that means that reading from the chain, which I think all of you know is particularly difficult, with our solution, it's extremely easy. So roughly about 1 or 2 seconds after the last transaction has gone through, the dashboard is completely up to date. We structured it for on-chain and off-chain value settlement. The enterprise integration is with Active Directory. So if you don't have Active Directory, it's a little bit more difficult. Easy customer switching, and we've structured for smart meter integration. I'll come to a little bit later why we were able to do that. But the roadmap at the moment is we started research on the energy industry in April of last year. At the end of last year, we tested our own proof of authority chain. And we deployed the POC at the retailer in February or March this year.
When we started, but finished around April.
We finished it in April, yeah. So in April, we finished it on 11 prosumers. And what we discovered as well is that what we had put onto the chain was correct. And we also, as a result, were able to tell the customer all of their data points that were not correct. Yeah, because the nice thing about the blockchain is that if you put rubbish in, you get rubbish out. So you can actually tell quite easily when you've got rubbish. So now we're going into, we've deployed it already, we're going into production. And that should be finished by, we're aiming to finish and produce real live bills by before Christmas this year. And so basically what we've done, I mean, how did we manage to do this? We developed the product not in a laboratory, we developed the product in a real setting. We've had 2 producers and 3 consumers, and we basically did that. The testing was done in Berlin. We started that in Q1 of this year. Yeah. And we really we've done it beyond the billing functions, and because everyone in the energy industry has got POCs at the moment, we just wanted to show you the pictures here and actually you can see Len from the side. Yeah. So this is an actual installation that's been running since last year. It's 4 apartments, 1 site. We've got a Blockheizkraftwerk, we've got photovoltaic. It's a quorum blockchain with smart meters. And the idea was to test it here, which we did. And now we are we are going to roll this out to 40 more apartments in Germany. We've already installed the PV in those apartments. We've installed the Blockheizkraftwerk in the cellars, and we have also put in heat pumps. We are currently waiting on the installation of batteries because one of our partners in this is Kreisel Electric. So we thought of taking the Tesla batteries, but because they're proprietary software, we looked for another partner, and so now Kreisel Electric is one of our official partners. And so that's where we tested it all, and that's how we were able to develop the billing app so quickly. Our deployment timetable really takes about between 5 and 9 months. What we call week 0 really takes about 4 weeks, 2 to 4 weeks, depending on the complexity and the size of the project. And the week 0 happens without any one of the developers. We have around 16 of them now. Before any one of them do any coding, we finish week 0. So week 0 is definitely around the business logic, it's around the governance, it's around the pricing strategy, but we make sure all the user flows, the UI, the UX, all of those things are all completed in those weeks. And then we start with the core development. After that's complete, that takes 1 to 2 months. The trial deployment also 1 to 2 months, and the production deployment 2 to 4 months. So we've got at least 2 clear use cases that we've done, where we can really produce the bill at the touch of a button. Yeah. Do we have? Okay. So we've got some partners involved. We've been working with Slockit for a while. I'm an advisor to Slockit, so that relationship has helped quite a bit. We've done some strategies at Innovos, and so that's helped us develop a fairly trusted relationship with the senior management there. We've got Kreisel, and we've got other partnerships with Kreisel besides just the besides the batteries. We also, because of the problems with smart meters that we had, we've also actually designed our own smart meter with the blockchain in it, because at the moment that's one of the weak points in our strategy. These smart meters, that the classical smart meters that everyone is using. Okay.
Yeah.
We don't have.
Which one were you looking for?
No, I think it's fine.
Okay.
Okay. So maybe we'll take some questions now. Yeah.
Would you like to continue?
No, maybe just to give you an idea, the Deep Stack is the retail billing app is the first point that we started with. We've got a use case at the moment for guarantee of origin certificates, because the client we have needs to report to the European Union. The decentralized energy exchange is important for dynamic pricing. And then grid balancing, crowdfunding, and EV charging, we actually have not started on yet. That's the next phase. I think there's been enough people who've been doing EV charging and have gone bankrupt trying, so we have not really spent a lot of time with that. We're waiting for the right business model to come along, and that's really our strategy. We only do something when the business model and the strategy behind it we know is going to be sustainable.
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to thank you for being so open and going into so much detail with us. I think it's very useful for all other affiliates to actually hear what you're going through, and maybe to be sort of supported by this. Before, I haven't seen any questions yet, but I have just one quick question for you. Is what are your target markets? What is the strategy in that sense? I'm really interested to hear about it.
I mean, our strategy is really to try and solve problems with the blockchain today. Yeah. So it's not to try and we definitely, I mean, I think from the startup, from Confidio, our vision is definitely a sustainable world. We want to make sure that I mean, we want to save the planet. It sounds like a big deal, but I think we generally feel quite strongly about that. The question is, how do we go about all these big visions and these big goals if we can't solve basic problems today? So the idea was, how do we make sure that we put all these goals on a roadmap, but demonstrate we can solve things today? And so that's why we started with billing, because we know billing's a problem. The other thing about billing, which is very important, is that if you've got an entrepreneur who wants to start a new business, yeah, he or she has got to have a billing solution, and the cost of billing solution run into the millions, which means entrepreneurs have difficulty with doing this without either spending a lot or going to an outsourcing provider, also which costs a lot of money, yeah, and is not scalable. So this is a solution for both existing utilities, retailers, as well for entrepreneurs who want to go out and make their own virtual retailers. And so that's why we started with that. Guarantees of origin, I mean, that's an area that's full of corruption at the moment. And we certainly have some proof of concepts there. And we are just waiting to finish this phase or finish the billing app before we start with that. So it's really a strategy of solving a problem, using the foundation of that problem, and then moving to the next one.
Okay, sounds like a good plan. We also have received a few questions actually, so maybe we can start with the first one. I think you can all see it, but maybe I can read it. Did you use the Istanbul consensus algo on Quorum?
We cannot see the questions. Can you maybe repeat them?
It's in the chat, maybe because you shared the screen. Okay, yeah. So do you use the Istanbul consensus algo on Quorum?
Well, we started off with Quorum, but we ran into some problems related to the Geth version that Quorum was using. So just 2 months ago, we switched to Parity and are using the Aura consensus mechanism now.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And the other question is, did you build your own hardware device to bridge the physical and blockchain world?
No, we didn't build our own. Well, I can say we did. We basically wrote the specs for it, and we partnered with someone to do it, because building hardware is not really our core strength. But it seems like designing the hardware specs maybe, because it looks like that was quite. So we really, those specs are our own, and actually we've got the suggestion now by the provider to start building them and turning that into a business model, but it's not really core. But we've written the specs for it.
Okay, thank you. I think, yeah, we don't have any more questions at this moment. So is there anything else you would maybe like to share?
Hi, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, great. Hi, it's Sabine here, dialing in from Shell. Thanks for a presentation, really interesting. I had a couple of questions. I stepped in a bit late during the presentation, but have you been primarily experimenting with this in the, you mentioned the Berlin area. Are you also looking at different markets already in different geographical areas?
Yes, I mean, so we have spoken to, currently we have spoken to people from South Africa, we've spoken to people from Japan, we've spoken to people from the Netherlands, we've spoken to people from Germany. So it's a reasonable, we have an architecture that's based on a mutually shared infrastructure. So I think it doesn't matter what the partners have, we should be able to work with it.
Right, yeah, thanks. And on what sort of frequency do you do these billing samples?
At the moment, the current one we're doing is 1 bill every 2 months. Yeah, but that's not. I think that's dependent on the culture of the wherever you are. Some people want to bill every month. Some people can have a bill once every 3 months. And ideally, because this is also real time, you essentially have a bill every day. Yeah, if you can. So that it can really become a daily thing. And that's our aim at the end, because prosumers, some of them are more anal than others. They want to basically see what's happening every day. Others want to see it once a year. So that can be a completely open thing.
Yeah, right. Thanks.
Thank you. And we have received a couple of more questions. First is, what is the advantage of using blockchain in this in the end? And yeah, let's start one at a time.
The advantage of using blockchain, I think that's we struggled with that quite a bit, because we have in week 0, as I said, the main thing that we do is we decide whether the blockchain has an advantage, and it has to have a sustainable advantage. The advantage in this case is that retail billing on the blockchain is incredibly cheap. Yeah. So if you're using SAP, if you're using something else, SAP is very expensive. So the advantage here is just cost reduction. Yeah. However, what you do is you build a foundation where you can then start trading in microgrids, community grids with certificates of origination for wind. You can then take your certificates of origination down to a granular level and say, this energy comes from wind, this energy comes from solar, this energy comes from a Wärmepumpe, this energy comes from a Blockheizkraftwerk, just by putting an overlay of AI on it. So you're building a foundation with the blockchain that basically identity is verified and immutable. So you know there's no chance of corruption. All the transactions have a hash, and you can go back and audit every transaction. From a European Union point of view, that's important. From a carbon trading view, that's important. From an investment banking view, that's important. So if you have someone who engages in large-scale fraud, like you've had in the past 10 years on carbon trading, you probably noticed that not a single one of these banks has been prosecuted up to now. And now with this, using this and putting it on the blockchain, you can find out who's been cheating and you can trace it back. So those are the long-term advantages. The blockchain is actually super relevant for these use cases. For EV charging, etc., although the blockchain is useful, it's simply not a sustainable business model. So that's the other problem that you've got to look at. Crowdfunding is very important. And if you're going to eventually get to peer-to-peer trading, you have to put in the decentralized energy exchange. I mean, you guys will probably know that what we try to find out, and for LO3, for example, they did pricing, peer-to-peer trading. They did it at a fixed price. And if you do any trading at a fixed price, you don't need the blockchain. Whether they did it like that or not, we struggle to find it out. But if you're using dynamic pricing, then you have to have the blockchain. Otherwise, you end up with a whole lot of dysfunctionalities in the value chain. So I think the use of the blockchain here is pretty much done and dusted. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, what client are you using? Parity Light client.
We started using the Geth client on the Quorum chain, and that's when we also discovered that maybe a lot of people in the space are only doing POCs, because as soon as we went into deployment and started simulating thousands of transactions, the node kept falling, the client kept falling over, and so as a result, we had to change our architecture a little bit. And we were also quite surprising that not many people have discovered this. if there's so many projects globally.
Okay. And how do you manage GRPD obligations?
GRPB?
PD.
GDRP.
Oh, GDRP, you mean the privacy obligations?
Yes.
GDRPs.
Yeah, GDPR.
GDPR, yeah.
GDPR is quite easy to manage. I mean, on the blockchain, it's relatively easy to manage, and you can have role-based permissions, and you can go. So it's a quorum. Therefore, there's quite a bit of privacy on the chain. In contrast to Hyperledger, for example, or what Accenture is doing, they've got private chains where they're basically offering corporates that all the data on the chain can be mined. In this year, the data on the chain cannot be mined. The data always belongs to the customer. And that's quite important for us. I mean, we really are, our vision is one of a decentralized, fairly equal, sustainable world, which means that customers, if they choose to let people have their data, they do so with full knowledge. And if they want to get paid for it, they should also have that option. So all the products we developed have that core philosophy that customers own their data. Big companies should not be allowed to use data for their own profit without reimbursing the people providing the data. That's core to our philosophy. That's one reason we don't work with Hyperledger, for example. Yeah.
Okay, and one more. Are you putting data related to a person on chain?
Well, you have to be more specific about that. Of course, we have to put all the transaction hashes and all the identity hashes are all related to persons. So of course we have to do that.
Yeah, but maybe, sorry, this is Nitin. Maybe you're not putting the real world identities like name, address, these sort of things on blockchain, right? So this is managed at the ዄApp layer.
Yes, we at the moment basically all of it is accessible to some. So to the company, all that data has to be accessible. They supply it, but it's not. It's privacy preserving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I think that is it for now. We don't have any more questions coming in. Yes, I just want to thank you once again. I think this was very useful, and we will definitely share the recordings with other affiliates, so you might get some additional questions later on.
Okay, very good.
Thank you once again, and till the next webinar.
Okay, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.